In this video, I'm going to talk you through how you can use the Sproket Documents web part. The Documents web part allows you to display documents from any library, in any site, in any folder, on any page within your SharePoint site. So in SharePoint, we have what we call document libraries, where you can house folders, documents, attach metadata, etc. And what the Sproket Documents web part allows you to do is surface those documents in various locations. So in this case, I've added this web part in here as an example. This is a library called Documents. I've allowed the ability to have this filter or search here, so I can search just within this web part. And then I've got the option to come in and choose out of this library what columns I want to bring through. So in this case, I brought through the type, which will give me an icon, the name, which will link to the name of the folder or file that I'm clicking on, and then I've got the modified date. I do also have the option to get this See All, which will take me inside the document library itself. So you'll notice now if I click on this folder contracts, that takes me inside the folder of this contracts area, and you'll see here I now have this breadcrumb trail to indicate I'm in a library called Documents, and I've now clicked into a folder called Contracts, and I've got the search that I can search directly in this folder in here, and I can again see the type, the name, and the modified, or those columns that I've defined, and clicking on the document will then launch sort of that application. So say Word Online, or if it was a PDF, it would launch the PDF. So I've got this See All, as I mentioned. So if I'm just going to open this up in another tab here. That will take me inside this document library where I can actually see all of these different folders. So those exact same folders. And what I've got in here is I've actually got some additional metadata that I'm using to tag these documents. So within contracts, I can see that I've got department and document type. I've got 2 under HR and 2 under contract. I'm just showing you this here, so in my demo shortly, I can show how I can actually surface these documents specifically just to show me HR contracts as one example. So I'm going to come back in here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in and edit the page and add the Documents web part from scratch. So this is one that I've configured earlier. However, if I click on, if I hover over until I see the plus symbol, I'm now going to search for Sproket. So when I search for Sproket, it's going to give me all the different web parts I have available in Sproket. However, in this demo, I'm after the Sproket Documents web part. I could have also searched for Documents, and it would have been an option for me as well. So I now get this little edit web part, this little pencil icon, and I also get configure web part, and both of those will bring up this panel on the right hand side for me. The Sproket Documents has 2 sets, so 2 pages of settings, one focused on the display options and one focusing on where you're actually pulling those documents from. So for example, if I just come to this one that I had already done, you can see here there's got the amount of items that I've selected that I can display within this web part. So by default, it will be 50. However, if you wanted to change that, you could display 100 instead, or you might just want to show 3 or 10 or however many you want to do there. The command bar is giving you this option to see all. So if I deselect that, then it's purely just going to remain within this web part without giving them the ability to go into that full library experience that I showed earlier. I then have this show filter, and that's giving me that search box in here. So I can turn that on and off if I don't want people to search within this web part. The compact view, if you're wanting to just reduce the amount of space that you're taking up on a page, this just gives you the ability, just makes it a little bit smaller and more compact as it specifies. And I do have the option to turn off this file type as well if you're not wanting to show that icon in there. And there is the ability to not show folders. So if you did have a document library which had a combination of folders and just flat documents, you can turn that off. In this case, I do want to show the folders because I've got those 4 folders living at that top level. That explains that sort of display options. So what I'm going to do in this blank one in here, you'll notice that if I go and change some of these settings, I can't actually see that happening, or it's not sort of doing anything on the screen for me. And that's because I actually need to come into Next and first say where I'm actually pulling these documents from. So you've got in here site URL, and this is giving me a drop down of all the different SharePoint sites that live in my Microsoft 365 environment. So when I come in here, I've got a number of different sites. I will only see the ones that I've got access to see, but I can come in here and say, okay, I know that it's in this Sproket support site. It's in just the default homepage of that site. If you're using, so then you've got this list title, and that's going to show me all the things that are living in the site contents of this specific site collection. So the site URL is first picking a site collection. It's then asking me if it's just in the default sort of homepage, and then I've got what are the different libraries that I've got to choose from. So in this case, I'm just wanting to select the Documents library. And you do then have the option to actually only bring through from a certain folder as well. So you see in my example down here, I'm showing all folders. However, this is where I could actually just put the folder contracts, and it would only show me that specific folder. So again, you'll notice I haven't seen anything yet, and that's because I've got this mandatory field in here where I need to go in and say what columns I'm wanting to bring through. So standard SharePoint gives you a lot of default columns that you may or may not use or know about. But the ones that are important to me, or the ones that are commonly used, is the name. So we want to bring through the first name in here. And you'll notice because I've selected that type in the first display options, I've got that icon in there. I've now got the name, and then I can go in and select any other columns in here. So it might be, as I said, the modified date. It could be who modified it. I mentioned that I've got some other metadata columns in here, like the document type. So I could go in and bring these items through as well. You'll notice that the order is actually set by what I clicked on. So if I wanted to change the order, I do need to deselect them. So say I deselected document type and modified by. I then would need to come back in and then reselect that document type if I wanted that to come in third instead. So you do need to sort of tick them in the order that you want them. So that's a bit about that. The order by is not the order of the columns, it's the order of which in this case, folders are going to display. So I might want to come in here, and again, I've got all the columns in my document library that I can order by. I might want to come in here and order by the name field and have them just displaying in alphabetical order. Another option would be, it could be the modified date. I could say modified and then do it in descending order. So it actually shows me all the ones that were modified sort of most recent. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. You've got this option to query within folders. So at the moment I'm sort of showing at the top. I can actually query within those folders as well. And what that does is it gives me those top level folders, but all the documents within those folders as well. So you're essentially flattening all the documents within those folders, as well as being able to access them within them as well. So a couple of things that you can do in there. You can then also use this group by. So you can see in here that I've gone in and tagged these documents as sort of, this is a spreadsheet, this is a report, a policy, a procedure, etc. What I can do is, in this case, I might actually click on back and don't show folders. So now I'm actually focused purely on the documents that live in here. So I can click on next, and then what I want to do is I'm going to come in here and group by the document type. So I'm just going to click on document type, And now I can see, okay, even though these documents are living in folders, I can actually see these top level headings to say, okay, yeah, I've got one spreadsheet, I've got 3 reports, and it doesn't necessarily matter what folder they're living. I'm choosing to display the information in a way that makes sense to me, or that I think is going to make sense to the users that are coming to this area. So that's how you might use the group by. What you can also do is start to add filters. So I can click on add filter. And again, when I click on this field drop down, it's going to show me all the columns that live in my document library. So I had another one in here which was called department. So what I might do is, out of these documents that I'm bringing through, I actually only want to show the documents that have been tagged as HR, for example. So you'll notice in my earlier in the demo, I had that folder that lived under contracts, and I had these 2 documents that were tagged as HR and as a contract. So now it means that I can actually display this web part, say on the HR page, and say, hey, here's all the contracts that are related to HR. Doesn't matter if they were living in that HR area or if they're living in a policy and procedure area or a contracts area. I'm able to surface those documents from any location on any page in a way that works for me. So yeah, the ability to filter, to group by, query within folders, change the order, columns, and also use these display options to make it look and feel the way that you want it to.